On 2nd August, the party arrived at the enormous cavern, large enough to contain a vast cathedral. At the back of the cave, in a niche of deepest shadow, stood the image of Shiva, all ice. The Swami, who had fallen behind, entered the cave, his whole frame shaking with emotion. His naked body was smeared with ashes, and his face radiant with devotion. Then he prostrated himself in the darkness of the cave before that glittering whiteness. A song of praise from hundreds of throats echoed in the cavern. The Swami almost fainted. He had a vision of Shiva himself. The details of the experience he never told anyone, except that he had been granted the grace of Armanath, the Lord of immortality, not to die until he himself willed it. The effect of the experience shattered his nerves. When he emerged from the grotto, there was a clot of blood in his left eye. His eye was dilated and never regained its normal condition. Nor was his heart ever correct after that. For days he spoke of nothing but Shiva. He said, "The image was the Lord himself. It was all worshipped there. I have never seen anything so beautiful, so inspiring." On 8th August, the party arrived at Srinagar, where they remained until the 30th of September. During this period, the Swami felt an intense desire for meditation and solitude. The Maharaja of Kashmir treated him with the utmost respect and wanted him to choose a tract of land for the establishment of a monastery and a Sanskrit college. The land was selected and the proposal sent to the British resident for approval. But the British agent refused to grant the land. The Swami accepted the whole thing philosophically. A month later, his devotion was directed to Kali, the Divine Mother, whom Ramakrishna had called affectionately, "My Mother." A unique symbol of the Godhead, Kali represents the totality of the universe, creation and destruction, life and death, good and evil, pain and pleasure, and all the pairs of opposites. She seems to be black when viewed from a distance, like the water of the ocean, but to the intimate observer she is without color, being one with Brahman, whose creative energy she represents. In one aspect, she appears terrible, with a garland of human skulls, a girdle of human hands, her tongue dripping blood, a decapitated human head in one hand, and a shining sword in the other, surrounded by jackals that haunt the cremation ground, a veritable picture of terror. The other side is benign and gracious, ready to confer upon her devotees the boon of immortality. She reels as if drunk. Who could have created this mad world except in a fit of drunkenness? Kali stands on the bosom of her divine consort, Shiva, the symbol of Brahman. For Kali, or nature, Prakriti, cannot work unless energized by the touch of the Absolute. And in reality, Brahman and Kali, the Absolute and its creative energy, are identical, like fire and its power to burn. The Hindu mind does not make a sweepingly moralistic distinction between good and evil. Both are facts of the phenomenal world and are perceived to exist when Maya or illusion hides the Absolute, which is beyond good and evil. Ramakrishna emphasized the benign aspect of the Divine Mother Kali and propitiated her to obtain the vision of the Absolute. Swami Vivekananda suddenly felt the appeal of her destructive side. But is there really any difference between the process of creation and destruction? Is not the one without the other an illusion of the mind? Vivekananda realized that the Divine Mother is omnipresent. Wherever he turned, he was conscious of the presence of the Mother. As he said, as if she were a person in the room. He felt that it was she whose hands are clasped with my own and who leads me as though I were a child. It was touching to see him worship the 4-year-old daughter of his Mohammedan boatman as the symbol of the Divine Mother. His meditation on Kali became intense, and one day he had a most vivid experience. He centered his whole attention on the dark, the painful, and the inscrutable aspect of reality, with a determination to reach by this particular path the non-duality behind phenomena. His whole frame trembled as if from an electric shock. He had a vision of Kali, the mighty destructress, lurking behind the veil of life, the terrible one hidden by the dust of the living who pass by, and all the appearances raised by their feet. In a fever, he groped in the dark for pencil and paper and wrote his famous poem, Kali, the Mother. Then he fell exhausted. The stars are blotted out. The clouds are covering clouds. It is darkness, vibrant and sonnet. In the roaring, whirling wind are the souls of 1,000,000 lunatics, just loose from the prison house, wrenching trees by the roots, sweeping all from the path. The sea has joined the fray and swirls up mountain waves to reach the pitchy sky. The flash of lurid light reveals on every side 1,000,000 shades of death, begrimed and black, scattering plagues and sorrows, dancing mad with joy. Come, Mother, come. For terror is thy name, death in thy breath, and every shaking step destroys a world forever. Thou time, the all-destroyer, come, O Mother, come. Who dares misery love and hug the form of death, dance in destruction's dance. To him the Mother comes. The Swami now talked to his disciples only about Kali, the Mother, describing her as time, change, and ceaseless energy. He would say with the great psalmist, "Though thou slay me, yet I will trust in thee." Later, the Swami said, "It is a mistake to hold that with all men pleasure is the motive. Quite as many are born to seek pain. There can be bliss in torture, too. Let us worship terror for its own sake. Learn to recognize the Mother as instinctively in evil, terror, sorrow, and annihilation, as in that which makes for sweetness and joy. Only by the worship of the terrible can the terrible itself be overcome and immortality gained. Meditate on death. Meditate on death. Worship the terrible, the terrible, the terrible. And the Mother herself is Brahman. Even her curse is a blessing. The heart must become a cremation ground. Pride and selfishness and desire are all burned to ashes. Then and then alone will the Mother come. The Western disciples, brought up in a Western faith which taught them to see good, order, comfort, and beauty alone in the creation of a wise providence, were shaken by the typhoon of a cosmic reality invoked by the Hindu visionary. Sister Devi-The wrote, "And as he spoke, the underlying egoism of worship that is devoted to the kind God, to providence, the consoling deity, without a heart for God in the earthquake or God in the volcano, overwhelmed the listener. One saw that such worship was at bottom, as the Hindus call it, merely shopkeeping, and one realized the infinitely greater boldness and truth of teaching that God manifests through evil as well as through good. One saw that the true attitude for the mind and will that are not to be baffled by the personal self was in fact that determination. In the stern words of Swami Vivekananda, as he said, to seek death, not life, to hurl oneself upon the sword's point, to become one with the terrible forevermore. Heroism to Vivekananda was the soul of action. He wanted to see ultimate truth in all its terrible nakedness and refused to soften it in any shape or manner. His love of truth expected nothing in return. He scorned the bargain of giving to get in return and all its promise of paradise. But the gentle Ramakrishna, though aware of the Godhead in all its aspects, had emphasized its benign side. And one day several men had been arguing before him about the attributes of God, attempting to find out by reason their meaning. And Sri Ramakrishna stopped them, saying, "Enough, enough. What is the use of disputing whether divine attributes are reasonable or not? You say that God is good. Can you convince me of his goodness by this reasoning? Look at the flood that has just caused the death of thousands. How can you prove that a benevolent God ordered it? You will perhaps reply that the same flood swept away uncleanliness and watered the earth, and so on. But could not a good God do that without drowning thousands of innocent men, women, and children?" Thereupon one of the disputants said, "Then ought we to believe that God is cruel?" And Ramakrishna cried, "Oh, idiot, who said that? Fold your hands and say humbly, 'O God, we are too feeble and too weak to understand thy nature and thy deeds. Deign to enlighten us.' Do not argue, love. God is no doubt good, true, and beautiful, but these attributes are utterly different from their counterparts in the relative world." The Swami during these days taught his disciples to worship God like heroes. He would say, "There must be no fear, no begging, no demanding the highest. The true devotees of the Mother are as hard as adamant and as fearless as lions. They are not in the least upset if the whole universe suddenly crumbles into dust at their feet. Make her listen to you. None of that cringing to Mother. Remember, she is all-powerful. She can make heroes out of stones."